everyone, it's Lisa, and I am so excited to share with you the 15 cards that I made with the Stamps of Life December 2020 card kit. And this kit is absolutely amazing. I think it's my favorite one by far. I love the colors in this kit, and wait till you see all of the fun goodies that are included. But before we get started with the unboxing and this card tutorial, go ahead and click that subscribe button and turn on your bell notifications so that you'll be notified every time I release a new video. And be sure that you watch all the way through this video because there's a special surprise at the end. So before I open this box and show you all the fun things that are inside, I do want to mention that this kit coordinates with the Stamps of Life monthly club set, which is the Love Bugs to Stamp set. And there's also an add-on set, which is the More Love Bugs to Stamp. And again, these are separate. They are not part of the card kit. So let's go ahead and open this box and take a look at what's inside. So with every card kit, you always get this large storage envelope, which will hold your 8.5 by 11 cardstock sheets. You also get a set of envelopes. And the solid color cardstock that's included is the Grape, Blue Jay, Ocean, Mint Chip, and in this kit there's Kiwi, although the color scheme is Green Apple, so I'm sure that the Stamps of Life was probably out of the Green Apple cardstock, so they substituted that for the Kiwi. There's also the Candy, Guava, Cranberry, and 4 sheets of powdered sugar. And in my cards today, I will be using the Green Apple cardstock instead of the Kiwi cardstock since the paper pad has the Green Apple in the color scheme. So here's the paper pad that's included, and I just love all of the fun papers in this pad. And look at all of these love bugs. You can use your dies from the Love Bugs to Stamp and the More Love Bugs to Stamp to die cut those love bugs and those flowers out of the paper pad, which make for quick and easy cards. So rather than stamping and coloring, they're already colored for you, which is super easy and fun. Also included is a sentiment stamp set, which includes sentiments such as hello, hugs, love you, and then you can say hugs and kisses, thanks, with all my heart, and a happy heart makes the face cheerful, and then there's the heart stamp that you see there. You also get the With Love word die, which is the words and the shadow. You will get the heart chipboard pieces in the same color scheme as the paper pad. You will get the arrow die, which also comes with the shadow, and the grape felt flowers, as well as some glittery epoxy dots in the color scheme of your paper pad. You get 2 ribbon, a guava, and then a grape plaid. You'll get an idea card, which has some ideas for cards that you can make with the kit. And then you'll also get your 2 free dies just for being a card kit club member, and these 2 free dies have been added as just a little free gift from Ken at the Stamps of Life to every card kit member. And my free dies are the sampler dies and the happy birthday word dies. So thanks, Ken, for my freebies. And Stephanie added her own free gift to all the card kit members, which is this really cute heart tag, which we will be using in some cards in this video. So once again, here are all the fun goodies that are included in the card kit. So I do have to say that I had so much fun making cards with this kit, and I also want to add that I will be bringing in some other products from the Stamps of Life to make my cards. I know there are so many other fun sets that I wanted to include in my cards that I thought would go perfectly with these love bugs. So here I'm taking out the 4 sheets that can be die cut with the shadow dies from the More Love Bugs to Stamp and the Love Bugs to Stamp sets. So the sheet on the left with the love bugs is from the Love Bugs to Stamp, and the flowers are from the More Love Bugs to Stamp. And I just love these because they're colored so beautifully, and again, they make for quick and easy cards, so I don't have to worry about coloring these. Now, if you do want to see how I colored these up, I will post in the description box some other videos. I have 2 other videos where I did do some coloring on the love bugs as well as those flowers, so I'll link those videos down below in case you're interested in seeing some more that you can do with this set. So I go ahead and die cut all of these pieces. So you have the mail mail die for all of those little fun mail pieces, and then you have the shadows for the love bugs. And for the flower that does not have the stem, I went ahead and die cut it with the flower with the stem shadow die, and then just fussy cut the bottom portion out. So in total, this paper pad has 12 flowers, 8 love bugs, and 12 pieces of mail that you can use to create your cards. So starting with card 1, I am going to be bringing in the jar to stamp set from the Stamps of Life, and I'll stamp out the mason jar on some powdered sugar cardstock, and I'm just using some scrap cardstock that's in my stash rather than cutting through an entire piece of cardstock that comes in the paper pad. I stamped it out in the candy ink, and then after I die cut that mason jar, I just ink up the edges with some more candy ink. And when I die cut the mason jar, I did not use the shadow die. I used the top layering piece to get a closer cut. And then I took the shadow die and I die cut a powdered sugar piece, and I'm going to put glue on the back of the layering die and just add it to the powdered sugar shadow die. And I thought it would be really cute to have the mail pieces look like they're falling out of this jar. So here I'm just making sure that I did not put glue all the way at the top edge of that mason jar to make sure that I can fit that mail inside the jar opening. So here I'm just kind of positioning everything where I want it to go, and I always like to do that before I actually adhere it down. And you see that I just put glue at the top of the mason jar and not over the whole thing, because the whole thing is going to be cut off. So technically when you're recreating this card, you don't have to ink up the whole bottom part of that. You can actually save your ink. I ended up doing the whole thing because I didn't know how much I was going to cut off, but once I glue that down to that layer, I just turn it over and then just cut off the excess. I used the mint chip cardstock and die cut 2 grass die cuts. This is from the grass die from the rounded corner step up card. I really love the grass that's in that step up card because it's much longer than some of the other grass dies that are out there. Now it's a little bit shorter than the width of this card layer, so I will have to connect these 2 pieces. I also inked it up with some of the mint chip ink, which matches the cardstock. That heart pattern paper measures 4 by 5 1/4, and I know in the past I haven't included the measurements to these card layers in my blog posts, but I think I'm going to start doing that. So if you haven't already checked out my blog, make sure you head over there if you're trying to recreate this card and you don't have to worry about taking notes. I know that I've heard some people tell me that they try to rush to take notes on the measurements, so I think when I'm doing my blog post, I'll just go ahead and put all those measurements there for you, and then if you wanted to print them out, you can do so. So the link to my blog will be down in the description box, and you can just head on over there. And the supplies will be listed there as well. So I add the grass, I do connect them in the middle, and then I just snip off the excess. And I am going to stamp the sentiment directly onto this card layer. So I'm just going to position this love bug where I want it, and then I'll be able to position the stamps just to make sure that they're all going to fit on my card layer. So I'm going to be using the sentiment from the Love Bugs to Stamp set, and it's the Sending You, and I'm stamping it there at the top, and then towards the bottom I'll put the Happy Mail on there. So I just stamped that up with some black ink, and now I'll be able to finish up this card. So I'm going to go ahead and place the mail in the mason jar. So I'm going to have one inside the opening for the mason jar, and then I'll have a couple mail pieces that are actually on the mason jar, look like they're trying to make their way out. So I'm going to add glue. One of them will be extending off the end, which is perfectly fine because I'll be able to snip off the excess when I turn this card layer over. Now I also thought about adding maybe some flowers to the bottom where the grass is, or even putting some mail in the grass, but then I just decided to leave it. I didn't want to make this card too busy, and one of my reasons for maybe wanting to put some flowers there is to cover up the connection where the grass was, but you really can't notice it all that much, so I just left it alone, and then I added that layer to a card another card layer, which is the guava, which measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and then that entire layer will go on an A2 size card base, which measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and that completes this card. Now for my next card, I will be using a piece of grape cardstock, and the grape cardstock measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Then I have a red layer, or it's a cranberry layer, which is 3 3/8 by 3 3/8. Another cranberry layer, which is 3 3/8 by 4 5/8. And then the With Love paper is 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, and the pink heart paper is 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. So I'm just layering those on, so you have the pattern paper layered onto the cranberry solid cardstock on both of those pieces, and then I'm just kind of putting these in a diagonal onto the grape cardstock layer, and then I'm just going to snip off the excess because I did want it to hang off the edges, and then the pink heart layer is going to go right on top of that, but just the other way, also in a diagonal. I will be bringing in the tic-tac-toe club die set. I thought this would be perfect. I just love all of these cards that I am putting together in this video. I think they're perfect for Valentine's Day or just when you want to send a note of love. And I love this tic-tac-toe set. I did it on another Valentine's Day card last year, and a lot of people loved it. So I want to bring it in this one again because it's perfect for that time of year. So I die cut the tic-tac-toe die out of the cranberry cardstock. I decided that the heart chipboard pieces would be perfect for the actual game pieces of that. So I will be adding those to that card. I'm also using the With Love sentiment word die, and I die cut the shadow layer out of the powdered sugar, and the words are in the cranberry cardstock. Now the I in the word with, the little dot will stay behind in your die, so make sure you watch for that so you can dot your I. So I go ahead and add that in the same diagonal slant as the pink heart pattern paper, and then I decide to bring in more purple and add the purple hearts to my tic-tac-toe game board, and I think that just turned out so perfect. I just love these chipboard hearts. They come in all of the colors of the paper pad, and they are so stinking cute. So I'm going to add that entire card layer to an A2 size card base in white. And most of my card bases are from the craft store, but if you wanted to take an 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock and cut it to 8.5 by 5.5 and then score it at 4 1/4, you will get your card base. So that completes this card. For my next card, I'm going to be using a piece of candy cardstock that measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and the Blue Jay heart paper is 4 by 5 1/4. I'm also bringing in the border die, and I die cut a piece of mint chip cardstock, and I'm inking up the edges with the mint chip ink. I'm going to bring in 2 flowers that you see there on the table. I'm also going to be bringing in some cloud dies. So if you've been a card kit member for a while, these cloud dies were in the January 2020 kit, and I love these cloud dies. They have little cut out holes in the on the actual cloud, which is super fun. It's nice and detailed, and unfortunately these are out of stock on the Stamps of Life website. I know that they had some left, and I think they sold out because I didn't see them on there. But if you don't have these particular cloud dies, you can use any cloud dies that you have in your stash if you're trying to recreate this card. So here I'm just kind of positioning things where I want them. Notice when I put glue, I don't add it all the way to the top because I want to leave some room there so that I can tuck the flowers behind that little grass hill. So I go ahead and add that border. It does extend off the end of that card layer, and then I just use my scissors and I will snip off the excess. Now the taller flower was a little bit too tall, so I did snip off some of the stem and then I add glue. I tuck it behind that grassy hill border, add both of those flowers, and I'm not using the shadow layer for the clouds. I thought it would be pretty if the blue on the cardstock layer or the pattern paper layer is coming through those holes, so I didn't want to include a shadow layer. And I'm just adding some glue there, and I don't know if I mentioned this, I did add some candy ink to the edges of the clouds and then add those clouds to the pattern paper and snip off the ends. I am going to use the With Love word die. I was debating if I wanted to use a stamp or if I was going to use the die. And then I ended up going with the actual die, but I'm not using the shadow layer because I don't have a whole lot of room down there. So I didn't want to put the shadow there. And I didn't want to add another color down at the bottom. I wanted all that green to show through for the grass. So the With Love is cut out of the candy cardstock. I did put some double-sided adhesive tape on the back of the cardstock before I ran it through my die cut machine, and I was just weeding out some of the extra pieces. Notice the eye, again, it got stuck behind, but instead of using that little dot, which I thought I was going to use that dot, I actually decided that I was going to take the heart dies that come with the love bug dies and die cut a bunch of hearts, which you see me putting here. So it's going to look like that it's raining hearts from the clouds. Those were cut with the candy cardstock. Anyway, I'm going to use one of the extra hearts for the eye in the word with. I thought that that would be really cute. And since I did that on this card, you will see other cards coming up in this video where I used the With Love word die and I decided to add a heart for the eye. I thought that would be super cute. So that entire layer is going to go on an A2 size card base in white. And I also want to mention that I made a card very similar to this in a previous video. And instead of using these die cuts like you see here, I colored up these flowers. I also did not use the cloud dies. Instead, I used a large Thinking of You stamp from the Heart Words to Stamp, and I created a cloud background using my inks. And here is a picture of that card. So I will link that video down below if you're interested in seeing how I colored that up and created that cloud sky background. So for this card, I have a piece of ocean cardstock which measures 4¼ by 5½. The flower paper is 4 by 5¼ The heart strip is 1½ by 5¼ I do bring in a scallop die, which is cut in the cranberry, a scallop circle die, and then a regular circle die, which is cut in the ocean. And I will put the circle measurements in my blog so you can see what size circles those are. And I'm just gluing some of these pieces down to the pattern paper, the flower pattern paper. I am also going to be bringing in the scallop border die. I love this scallop border die. It came in a card kit not too long ago. I would say, I don't know if it was last month or the month before, but I love it. I have used it so much in so many cards that I've made over the last month. So I did cut 2 of those borders out of the guava cardstock and I added them there, as you saw, above and below that strip of pattern paper. And I'm also going to be bringing in the With Love die, and I use that quite often on a lot of cards in this video. I really love that word die. Now, because that word die was a little bit too long to fit in the space that I wanted to put it, I do have to cut it, which is not a big deal. I just use my scissors, cut it right in the middle of the words, and then just smooth out the ends just to curve them with my scissors. And then I just add some glue and add them to this strip. Now I am cutting out some hearts, actually 1 heart, to dot my eye out of the same guava cardstock. And I'm adding a few more of the hearts in the scallop circle. And then that entire layer will go on an A2 size card base. And it's just a white card base. And I will also use the guava ribbon that came in the kit, and I will tie a bow around the top of that card and just snip off the ends, and that will complete this card. My next card, I'm using a piece of mint chip cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and the pink heart pattern paper is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I'm also using my dotted heart dies, and I die cut a larger one out of the guava cardstock and a smaller one out of the mint chip heart pattern paper, and just layered those on to each other. I'm going to add the large pink pattern paper to the mint chip layer. I'm also bringing in one of the love bugs, and I'm also going to be bringing in a sentiment from the sentiment stamp set that came with the card kit. I stamped out the words love you on a very thin piece of just white cardstock. I actually cut that cardstock so that it's 3/8 inches tall. It was super long, but I just centered it in the middle there and then just cut off the excess on each side. And then I'm going to add the love bug to the middle of the heart. I do use the arrow, and I actually cut it in the middle, and I take the front of the arrow and I put it under the top right hand corner of the heart, and then the bottom of the arrow at the bottom left hand side of the heart. I thought about using a ruler just to make sure that those lines are even, but then I kind of just gave up on it and just kind of just used my eyes and just try to center it the best I could. When you die cut your arrow, make sure you have double-sided adhesive on the back of your cardstock, because those are such thin lines and it's really hard to put glue on that. I do bring in some of the chipboard hearts in the mint chip to bring more of that mint color into this card. And I add that entire layer onto an A2 size card base in white. And then I decide to stamp the inside, and I'm going to be using the sentiment with all my heart. So the sentiment on the front is love you, and then when you open it up it'll say with all my heart, and then I use another arrow and add the arrow to the inside of the card. You can see that just adding glue on this is very difficult, but I did manage to get the glue on there, and then just add that right underneath the sentiment. And then I decided that the front of this card needed another heart, so I go ahead and add another one there, and that will complete this card. For this next card, I'm actually going to be using a card sketch from Paper Play, and it's sketch 46. And I have a green apple piece of cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. That purple heart paper is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I have 2 stitched rectangle dies, one cut out of the green apple cardstock and one cut out of the love bug pattern paper, and I just layer those on, and I will have the measurements to those rectangles in my blog post. I also take one of the border dies from the sampler dies that I got with my free gift, and I die cut out of the powdered sugar and stamped the word hello out of the candy ink. And I'm also going to be bringing in the purple ribbon, so I just add some double-sided tape to the back of the ribbon, I should say on the back of that card layer. And I am going to be using the purple flower and then tucking the little banner, the hello banner, underneath. I was going to add glue to the back of that flower, but then I decided that I better not add glue. I better add some double-sided adhesive foam because of all the layers underneath, and it wasn't going to lay flat if I did not do that. So here I'm just adding a few of the epoxy dots, and these epoxy dots are so pretty. They have like a little glittery effect to them. And then I just add that entire card layer to an A2 size card base in white. And that will complete this card. So for my next card, I'm going to be using the Mojo Monday Sketch 547. And it's funny because I've used the Mojo Monday sketches in the past, and I've been saying it wrong all of this time. I've been calling it Mojo Monday because that's the Spanish in me wanting to call it Mojo. And then one of my viewers had asked me about it, and I said, well, I'm not sure if it's Mojo or Mojo. And so I reached out to Julie Tillman, who is the designer of the sketch, just to ask her for clarification, and sure enough, it is Mojo. So if I say it wrong, it's just keep in mind that's the Spanish in me talking. So anyway, back to business. I have this card sketch and I have a piece of ocean cardstock, and the ocean cardstock is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then the male piece of paper is 4 high by 4 1/4 wide, and then I have two of those scalloped border dies, one in candy, actually both in candy, and I put one at the top and at the bottom of that male paper. I also have this striped paper, which I layered onto some candy cardstock. The striped paper is 2 inches wide by 5 1/2 inches tall, and then the candy paper is 2 1/8 inch wide by 5 1/2 inch tall. And because there were so many layers here, I added a little strip of extra just scrap cardstock at the top and bottom of that layer, because otherwise it was not going to lay flat on my card. So I just wanted to add another little strip of layer underneath that striped paper, just so that it will lay flat on the card. I am going to be bringing in this flower, and I'm also going to be using the tag, which is the freebie that Stephanie threw into for the card kit club members this month. And I die cut one out of the ocean and one out of the candy. So I'm going to stamp the sentiment "Love You" on the candy tag, and then I'm going to use the heart from the ocean tag and just fill that heart in the inside. And I also want to point out that even though I'm using a card sketch, some of the measurements, well, I should say all of the measurements, I've modified them slightly according to my design. So even though I'm using a card sketch and there are measurements on these card sketches, I many times tend to modify them just to fit my own needs. So I'm going to go ahead and add that entire layer onto a white A2 size card base, and then I decide to go ahead and use my Nuvo drops and just fill in all of these little holes. If you have the 3D ink from the Stamps of Life, that should work as well, or you can just leave the holes see-through. You can do whatever you want with that. I also added a little bow up there at the top, so it's just some white twine that I incorporated there, and then I'm putting some of the epoxy dots on the front of that card, and that will complete this card. For my next card, I'm using another Mojo Monday sketch. This one is 539, and I have some measurements here. The green apple is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. That's the large one. The With Love paper is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and those two will be layered on to each other. Then the strips, I have the green apple strip, which is 2 inches by 5 1/2, and the pink hearts strip, which is 1 7/8 by 5 1/2. Those will be layered onto each other. And then the male paper is 2 3/8 by 4 1/8, and the green apple underneath that is 2 1/2 by 4 1/8. So again, just layering all of these and then adding them to the large card layer. So I'm going to add the male layer first. It will extend beyond the edge of that With Love paper. And then I'm just going to snip off the excess. I want to point out that I'm adding it to the With Love paper before I add that With Love paper to the green cardstock layer. That way I can get it even on the sides before I add it to the large green cardstock layer. Okay, here I'm doubling up some cardstock scraps because, again, if I don't do this, that layer is not going to lay flat because of all the other layers of cardstock underneath it. So just take some scraps out of your stash and then just put it right underneath it, and then add that with some glue, and then you can add the entire thing to your card layer. I'm also going to be bringing in some scallop circles. So I'm using the scallop circle dies from the Stamps of Life, and I die cut one scallop circle out of the green apple cardstock and one out of the white cardstock. So the green apple scallop circle that you see there lying on the table, it's 2 7/8 inch circle, and then the white one is a 2 1/4 inch circle. And I'm going to adhere those together. Notice that on the sketch, it has the border and the circle on the opposite side of the card. I put mine on the right side of the card. I don't know why I did that, but I just did. So again, just modified it slightly. And then I'm using that little tag die. So instead of using the banner that's showing there on the card sketch, I'm using the tag die up at the top. And I also stamped out the word hello and put that there on the tag. And then on the inside where the heart is, I'm going to use the pink heart from the previous card where I die cut the tag and fill that in. And here I'm just leaving those circles open. If you wanted to add some Nuvo drops, you could do that. I am adding a piece of twine that I tied in a bow. I'm using a glue dot to attach that. So just add a glue dot. I'm also going to be putting a pink epoxy dot right on top of that. When I add the epoxy dot, I just put a little bit of hot glue on the back. I think I stuck it down there, but then I picked it up and then just put a little hot glue there just to make sure that it stays down. And then that entire layer will go on an A2 size card base in white, and that will complete this card. So for my next card, I am using a piece of Blue Jay. It's actually the pattern paper, the Blue Jay pattern paper with the hearts on it. I die cut that out of the shadow layer, or the shadow die from the With Love die. And then the cranberry cardstock, I die cut the words With Love. And I think that has a nice contrast, those two colors. And I also used one of the hearts I will use for the I in the word with, the heart dies that I used in a previous card. And then I did the same thing for the arrow, only I just used a piece of Blue Jay solid color cardstock for the shadow layer and then the cranberry for the actual arrow. I am bringing in some scalloped rectangle dies, which I die cut a larger one out of the cranberry cardstock, and that's a 3.5 by 4 3/4 inch scalloped rectangle. And then the pattern paper scalloped rectangle is 3 by 4 1/4. So a lot of my cards, I've brought in some fun stamp and die sets that aren't part of the card kit, but I also brought in some basics. So if you're new to card making, I will say that some of the basic dies, like the circle dies, the square dies, or the stitched rectangle dies, or the scalloped rectangle dies, those are basics that I think every card maker should have in their collection. But if you don't have those, you can just use your paper trimmer and you can cut a solid rectangle, just a regular straight edged rectangle out of your paper trimmer. Obviously you can't do a circle unless you have a circle punch. You can just use a circle punch and cut some circles if there's a card where I made something with a circle and you don't have the circle dies. But all of these will be linked down below in the description box. So any of the dies or stamp sets that I'm bringing in that are not part of this card kit, I will link them down below. So you saw that I added some white twine from my stash. I thought that adding a heart chipboard piece was a nice touch to add to the top of that heart, and then added a few epoxy dots, and then that scalloped rectangle layer went on top of the Blue Jay paper, which that Blue Jay paper was 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and that entire layer went on an A2 size card base. And that completes that card. For my next card, I have a piece of grape cardstock, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. The mail pattern paper is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I have a scalloped rectangle, which I die cut out of the grape, and then I have a piece of mint chip, which is 2 3/4 by 4. That scalloped rectangle is a 3 by 4 1/4 scalloped rectangle. If you don't have the scalloped rectangle die, just die cut or just cut with your paper trimmer a piece of grape cardstock so that it measures a little bit larger than that mint chip paper, so you have a nice layer there. So I'm just adding these papers to on top of each other, so the pattern paper on top of the solid cardstock. I am going to be bringing in the purple ribbon. Now I'm also going to be bringing in the mini envelope die, which is such a fun die. I love this die. I've used it before, and every time I use it, people just comment how they love love that die. So I die cut this. This is a Stamps of Life die. It's the mini envelope die. I die cut it out of the guava cardstock, and here I'm just putting it together, just using some glue to put it together there. I am stamping out the hugs and kisses. That is part of the sentiment stamp from the sentiment stamp set from the kit. I am adding a flower. It's the flower without the stem, and I thought it would be super cute to have the love bug popping out of that envelope. Now, if you don't have the mini envelope die, you can just add that love bug right to the top of that rectangle on that mint chip paper. If you wanted to just, instead of the mint chip and do a pattern paper to make it more fun, you can do that if you don't have the envelope die. So then I'm just going to attach the entire layer to the middle of the large card layer. Notice that it is over top of the ribbon. So that purple ribbon is there in the background, and then I just tied a bow separately, and I'm going to hot glue that bow to the left corner of that envelope. And I think this card is so fun. So much fun. And then I add some epoxy dots next to the sentiment and add that to a white card base, and that will complete this card. For my next card, I'm going to be bringing in 3 scraps of my pattern paper, and that's exactly what they were just scraps. And I'm bringing them in. I'm going to use them on this card. So I have a piece of ocean cardstock, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. The polka dot paper is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and then each one of those strips is about 1 inch by 4 1/8. So here I also die cut a dotted oval die out of the white powdered sugar cardstock, and I figured it's probably best to turn everything over and adhere it directly to the oval just to make sure that I have everything spaced evenly. Because if I added the strips to the polka dot paper first and then added the oval, I wouldn't know if they were spaced out according to how big that oval was. And I didn't want them extending past the edge, the top or bottom edge of the oval. So hopefully that makes sense. So add them to the oval, then add that entire oval and the strips to the polka dot paper, and then add that entire layer to my ocean cardstock. And you can see the sketch is the Paper Play Sketch 13 is what I'm going off of for my design. So here I'm adding a large flower, and I'm also going to add the With Love sentiment, which I die cut out of the ocean for the shadow, and then the white for the words, and I do add a small heart for the dot, and I decide that I'm going to pop this up with some double-sided adhesive foam and add some epoxy dots to the front right on top of that oval and put that on an A2 size card base in white. And that will complete this card. For my next card, I have a piece of grape cardstock, measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and the mint heart paper is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Those will layer together. Then I'm using the mailbox dies, and I die cut the mailbox out of ginger snap cardstock, as well as out of the cloud cardstock. So for the ginger snap portion, I just cut off the bottom part, the stand of the mailbox, and I inked that up with the ginger snap ink, and then the top part of the mailbox was inked up with the cloud ink. And I also am bringing in the fence die, which I die cut out of some of the powdered sugar cardstock, and I decided to go ahead and add some cloud ink to that as well, just for some added dimension. And I am going to use this adorable ladybug like she is putting mail in the mailbox. So I'm going to go ahead and start building my scene here. I'm going to go ahead and attach the mailbox, and I will also then attach the ladybug, making sure that her mail is going in the mailbox. And then I'm going to attach the fence at the bottom. Now I probably should have added that fence to the pattern paper before adding the pattern paper to the grape cardstock, but I didn't. It's okay. I was able to trim it off close enough to that border. I also die cut a piece of the green apple cardstock using the grass border die from the Borders set, and then I'm going to go ahead and add that to the bottom of the fence. And again here, if I didn't attach to the grape cardstock, it would have been easier to cut these ends off, but it was not a big deal. I just used my little scissors and snipped the ends. I do add a pink guava heart to the middle of that mailbox. I'm also going to stamp out Sending You up at the top. That's from the Love Bugs to Stamp set. And then the word love, that's in the guava ink. And then I'm going to add some of these felt flowers to the fence, just attaching them with some hot glue. And then I will also add some of the mail pieces, almost like they're falling in the air, but it's going to be surrounding the word love just to add some more color. I decided to go with the guava to bring out some more of the guava as well as the ocean, because there is a little bit of ocean on the lady or on the Love Bug's shell. So I added that as well, and then added that entire layer to an A2 size card base, and that completes that card. My next card, I'm using another card sketch. This is the Viva la Verve. It's from the August 2016 sketch, and I'm also bringing in some more scraps. So from when I cut previous cards, these are some scraps that I had left over, and I'm also bringing in the eyelet scalloped circle, which I die cut out of some powdered sugar cardstock, as well as a stitch circle, which was die cut out of the mint chip cardstock. And the measurements for those will be in my blog. So I thought this would be a good way to use up some of these scraps that I had, and I thought that these papers, obviously all the colors in this palette are just so pretty together, and I just thought, gosh, these colors are so beautiful. So I went ahead and added them to the front of a card base. So notice it's going directly on an A2 size card base. I'm not putting any other layers of cardstock in here. I'm just trying to make sure that I space them out equally, which that's probably the toughest thing about this card, is just making sure that you are spacing them so that there's equal distance between each. And when I do something like that, I always like to make sure I add the outside layers first, so the purple and the ocean, and then do the one in the middle. And then once I have those adhered, just flip that card base over and just cut off the ends just to make sure everything is flush. So I'm going to add the eyelet scallop circle, add that to the top center, and then I am going to be bringing in the flower, one of the flowers, and I'm going to add the flower to the middle. I'm also going to be bringing in the With Love die, and the With Love die will be cut with white or the powdered sugar for the shadow layer, and then the candy for the words. And then I'm also going to be bringing in some heart chipboard pieces. So I'm going to be adding 3 of the heart chipboard pieces to the circle, and then adding a bow. And that completes my card. For my next card, I have the Paper Play sketch number 17 and an A2 size card base in white. The Blue Jay paper is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. The mail paper is 4 by 5 1/4. The purple strip of hearts is 1 1/8 by 4 1/8. I'm also bringing in 2 of the scalloped border die cuts, and that's in the powdered sugar cardstock, and then the powdered sugar small cardstock layer with the Blue Jay paper. The powdered sugar square or rectangle is 2 5/8 by 3 5/8, and then the Blue Jay heart paper is 2 1/2 by 3 1/2. So those are all layered on to each other. I'm going to add the strip first, and the strip is going directly onto the mail paper. And then the scalloped borders, I'm going to put 1 at the bottom, and then I'm going to put 1 at the top of that grape heart paper. And then any of that cardstock layer or the pattern paper layer that's extending off the ends will be cut off. And then the smaller layer is going to go off to the right on top of that larger card layer. I am going to add the love bug. I also stamped out Hugs and Kisses on a piece of powdered sugar cardstock. I used my scissors just to trim that Hugs and Kisses down to size. And I just attached it there to the bottom of that Blue Jay layer. And then I am going to add some of the chipboard hearts. And then that entire layer is going to go on the Blue Jay paper. And then that entire layer will eventually go on the A2 size card base. I did use the sampler dies and die cut 2 of the small banners, one out of the grape and one out of the powdered sugar, and added those there to the top. And here's the final card next to the card sketch, and I just want to point out the differences here that you see. So that large rectangle that's shown on the sketch I did not include, but I did include in replace of the buttons, I included those sampler dies up there at the top. So for my final card, I wanted to use some of the scraps that I had from cutting all of these pieces of paper, and I thought that the stitched window background die would be perfect for this card to get rid of some of these scraps. So this background die, it comes with this large rectangular die, and it has stitching all around it, which is really neat. And it has all these little squares, so if you wanted to add another layer on top, you can. I'm not using any of those little squares that you see there on the packaging. Instead, I'm just going to die cut my squares out of the large background die, and I'm adding strips of pattern paper just right across each one of the rows of the background die, and I'm going to die cut all of those squares. Now in my card kit video from last month, I made my last card with the window dies, and I did something very similar to this. So if you have your window dies, you can do this same look. Go back to that previous video from last month's card kit. It was the November card kit, and it was the last card, and you'll be able to make something similar to this if you don't have this particular background die. So you can see all of the little pieces that die cut out. Those are there on the table. And then I took the background die with the large rectangle die, layered them together, and die cut out of the powdered sugar cardstock to give me the actual piece to house all of those squares. So here I'm just deciding what order I want them in. I just didn't want all the same color on each row, so I wanted to kind of mix them up. And once I have them where I want them, I'll just add glue and then add those to that card. So I'm also going to be taking one of the stamps from the Sentiment stamp set, stamping that out on some white cardstock, trimming it down, and that's going to go on the front of the card, as well as some of these other fun die cut pieces. So I have the love bug, I have a flower, and I'm also going to be putting some of the male pieces on here as well. So I think that is such a fun design. It gives you a really pretty background. You can also use, if you have the triangle background die that was recently released from the Stamps of Life, that would make a pretty background as well using some of your scraps. So here is my final card, and if you made it this far, we are having a giveaway. So thank you for sticking with it and watching through the end. And I mentioned probably about a month and a half or so ago, when I had my last giveaway that was at 3,000 subscribers, that when I get to 4,000 subscribers, I would have another giveaway. Well, I reached 4,000 subscribers probably about a week or so ago, so I'm having another giveaway. I'm so super excited. I want to thank all of you for sticking by me. I never would have thought when I started this channel that I would even reach 1,000 subscribers. So you all have exceeded my expectations, and boy, do I just love making these videos for you. I love reading your comments. You all are so wonderful. So I want to say that I really appreciate all of your support. And this video couldn't have come at a better time because we have Christmas next week. It is my birthday month. My birthday is on New Year's Eve, so what a better way to celebrate than with a giveaway for all of you. So the Stamps of Life has been throwing in some dies, some free dies, to all of the Card Kit Club members every month for the last several months. I can't even count how many months it's been. Well, some of the dies that I've received have been duplicates of ones that I already have in my stash. So I want to give away the extra dies, and some of you may have them, some of you may not have them, and some of you may be new to the Stamps of Life. So this will give you a way to actually try out. If you win, you'll get to try out some of their product and see what you think. They are really high quality dies, and I think that you'll just fall in love with them. So I am going to be giving away my banana split to stamp dies. So if you like to do die cutting, these are perfect because you can die cut with various pattern paper or solid cardstock, and you can make a cute banana split. Now all of these dies have never been used, so I just want to give you a heads up. They're all brand new. And the banana split to stamp also comes with the die word smile, which is really fun. I also have the wreath to stamp dies, which I'll be giving away, and it comes with all these cute little flower dies as well. And I also have the sailboat to stamp dies, which also comes with a fun border die that you can use for a wave or some water. And then I also have the For You sentiment as well as the happy birthday sentiment. There will be 4 winners, one for the banana split dies, one for the wreath dies, one for the sailboat dies, and one for the word dies. Those word dies will be gifted together. And to enter the giveaway, you must, number 1, subscribe to my YouTube channel and be a visible subscriber. And number 2, under this giveaway video, leave me a comment telling me which card from this card kit video was your favorite, and also in the comments say, I want to win. That way I know that you're entering the giveaway, and tell me what product you want to win, because I do realize that some of you may have received some of these same dies, and if you don't care which product you received, tell me that too. This giveaway is open only to United States residents, and it closes on December 29th, 2020 at 11:59 Eastern Time. I will announce the winner on December 30th. All the rules will be listed in the description box below, and if you have any questions, of course, or any other comments, please leave them down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate each one of you. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.